Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. My name is Marcy Nettles, and I am your host. This podcast is all about finding amazing people that have had opportunities of difficulty. And I say opportunities because every single one of us has those chances to make the choice to either break down or break through in different circumstances in our lives. And our special guest today is absolutely no different. She's had many opportunities to have that choice. Am I going to go on the path of struggle and stay on it, or am I going to push through to the path of joy? So our special guest today, Dr. Natasha Nelson, she actually graduated from Palmer West College of Chiropractic in 1998. For 20 years, she has worked in private practice, helping thousands of patients understand care for their body and health as owner of the Inside Out Wellness Center. To keep current on the latest research, she attends continuing education seminars and scientific symposia, and in 2015 completed a master's degree in spiritual psychology. She has dedicated her career to understanding the connections between physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being through principles of chiropractic and spiritual psychology. Dr. Natasha is passionate about community education, and that passion has taken her to Nicaragua to deliver aid that was desperately needed in 2001. And then to speaking in front of 100 organizations, including Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. As an elite athlete in her own right, she has played professional beach volleyball. I absolutely love this woman. I love to just watch her and follow her on all of her social media posts. But she's played on the national and international circuits. She provides advisory services to professional, semi-professional athletes, as well as today's young athletes. Natasha Nelson is at the forefront of delivering the message of life medicine, where the focus is on restoring the human element of health, wellness, and living with vitality. This has led her to the emerging field of life doctoring as a mental health and emotional literacy consultant. Through life medicine and life doctoring, the effects of physical, chemical, nutritional, and emotional stressors in our lives can be managed through natural solutions. She believes a different life is possible for those that are willing to receive this education and take action. And, I really think that life is all about the willing, right? Because we all have the opportunity to learn things that are different and new. Then we have to be willing to see if we're willing to be part of that. But Natasha, oh my goodness, thank you so much for saying yes to being my guest today. And I just love to welcome you into the show.
Oh, Marcy, thank you so much. As you're reading my bio, there was a moment where I'm like, who's this person? She sounds amazing.
She is amazing.
and it's, I had read my bio since I wrote it, I always updated, but probably 2 years ago was the last time I really updated it all. So I'm hearing it, and there's a part of me that just goes, wow, that's my life. That's what I've done. And those are all the things lessons that I've collected and things that I've learned along the way. So it's actually really nice to hear it spoken in your voice as opposed to me writing it. So thank you. I like that.
You're very welcome. And it is, the things that you have accomplished in your life are absolutely amazing. Did you always know that you had this great calling on your life?
I knew in second grade I wanted to be a doctor, but I look at it now, and it's fascinating because I always said I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And in my mind, I understood that as, I wanted to be a brain doctor. And I remember my mom going, okay, well, that's a lot of work. I'm like, okay. But it really, second grade, to me, brain doctor, what I really understood that to me, though, is what I'm doing now is a mind. In the mind, it's not the brain part of it, but the mind. And that's what I realized, oh my gosh, I've always known this is exactly what I was going to be doing. I just didn't understand it at the time, what it meant in terms of what the words were. But I've always known, because every time I tried to veer off that path, somehow I just kind of came back.
Oh gosh.
Always came back.
I love that you actually had that vision of yourself, though, that was, deep inside you, you knew that this was your purpose and what you would be doing with people. I love that you knew that. But, at the age of second grade, how old is that? 6, 7 years old.
About 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So your path, was it just a quick and easy path to get to where you are now? Or can you share with us some of what your childhood was like? Because, you are a beautiful, beautiful blended race young woman. And I know that you had challenges because of that. Hence the title to your episode today being You're a Zebra. What now? Can you share with us what that exactly means and what your childhood was like?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I was born in 71. So as a mixed race growing up in the 70s in Northern California, people think, oh, it must have been so great. Your parents met in the 60s in San Francisco with all of the energy of civil rights movements. And, my parents married literally right after like mixed marriages were allowed. And it was hard. I'm not going to lie. It was really hard. It was hard because my mom was white, my dad was Black. And growing up, what I always heard was people would see me and either looking at me or looking at my mom, but really at me. They gave me that look and they would ask, like, well, what are you? And when I was in school, they would ask, what are you? And I didn't know how to answer, but I knew that the question did not feel good. And I didn't know why at the time. I didn't understand. I didn't know what to say. So I really either didn't say anything. And that's what some of the first signs of what I learned how to cope with things that were uncomfortable was I just wouldn't say anything. And the years, people would, they'd call me the zebra. They meant it as a derogatory term. And I just would try to laugh and, be okay with it when I really wasn't. Because I understood their intention was always really, I could feel it. They were looking at me like I was not just unacceptable, but looking at me with a shame, as if I should be ashamed of my parents' decision to marry. And it was carrying that made my childhood and made growing up very uncomfortable because I couldn't talk to my mom. I didn't feel comfortable with my dad. And there was nobody else that looked like me. And it's like a time when there was no social media, there was no television, it just wasn't there, wasn't talked about. So I thought there must be something wrong with me. And I carried that for so long. For decades, it was kind of the unconscious belief that I had about myself, that there was something wrong and there's something inherently bad with me. And it shaped how I operated. And over the years, and part of that's why I went back and for my degree in spiritual psychology was I wanted, because I could see how it was influencing my life, but I didn't understand how to deal with it, how to handle it, how to change the narrative that I thought. And so with the tools that I learned, I was able to really dig deep in there and understand, and got to a place where all of a sudden I went, wait, I used to always feel uncomfortable being half Black or half white because I felt that I had to choose and be one or the other. And I would always be in this position where I felt every time somebody would ask me a question, I'm like, well, are they asking me to answer as the Black side of me or the white side of me? Which side do they want? So I was kind of playing this game of what answer do they want to hear? Because that's the one I'll give them. And what happened once I really started to do my own inner work, I got to the place where I realized it's not an either or, but it's the and. And so everything in my life changed once I made this connection that I'm not Black or white when I answer. It's like I'm Black and white. So everything that I do comes from a place of Black and white. Everything is an and. So that duality is the third option of the and. So then once I got to that place and I went, actually, it didn't, it was one of those insight moments. I was out playing volleyball with my friends and there was music on and I don't know, I was just being silly and I started dancing and I had my hands up. I'm like, woohoo, I'm like the dancing zebra. And it hit me like, oh my gosh, like the zebra is no longer derogatory. It became, oh my gosh, it's me. And it released me and freed me from having to decide which side I have to choose. I'm like, no, I'm taking them all. I'm taking all the parts, all the sides, all the energy, all of it together. So that's where the zebra came from. And then, so the zebra is my spirit animal in so many ways, from the obvious, yes, how it looks, but the symbolism of the zebra. The zebra is not a horse, doesn't want to be a horse, has a mohawk, it doesn't want a mane. It's like its zebra stripes are its own individual identity, like fingerprints. But more importantly, the zebra doesn't want to be domesticated. A zebra, you cannot put a saddle on it and ride it. A zebra, you cannot hitch a trailer to it. I like to say, because it doesn't want to haul your shit. Right. And that has been the motto of my zebra self, is no longer carrying other people's baggage. And I'm not, and I don't. And so there was something so inherent about the zebra and me, and we are one. So that's my long story longer of how the zebra came to be, from the pain of it to really just owning it, but owning it in a way that's not owning other people's definitions and perspectives. It was me uncovering it for myself, and so being more than just okay with it, embracing it and loving it, and just here with it, all of it.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. And I love zebras, by the way, too. I love their uniqueness. I love the strength of them because they are so much stronger than people really realize that they are. And their individualism is like, I am me. And I'm going to be that thing, right? I am going to be me. I love that you talk about just embracing all of you instead of trying to divide it up to what people think or you think people want out of it. And just embracing everything that came along, which means also, I mean, you got to embrace the good of being both parts, right?
Yeah.
But you also have to embrace the struggles and the opportunities that came from being a zebra. You had mentioned your father just really quickly there about how you weren't really comfortable with going to him. Can you share some about your relationship with your dad and just some thoughts there?
So, well, yes, my dad and I it was a very difficult relationship. I grew up in a very physically violent home from my father, who was an alcoholic, who, when growing up, it was hard because obviously if I didn't know his story, I didn't know his experiences. So I didn't understand, it's the 70s. You don't talk about domestic violence and family violence. It's just not, it wasn't talked about. And so I just, in my mind, tried to figure out the best I could how to deal with it and understand it. And when I was about 13, I emotionally disowned him. And so when people would ask me like, oh, where's your dad? How's your dad? I'd be like, well, I don't have one. And they took that to mean like my father died, which he had not. But according to me, I never corrected them because it was easier for me to pretend he was dead than to try to understand it. Once I started to do my own like inner work and I understood more of his story, which I had to learn because my dad did pass when I was 30 and I never had a chance to talk with him, but I found out just the best I could through family members and what I knew. My dad had a hard upbringing. He was a Black man in 1939 in Louisville, Kentucky. He saw some stuff, he experienced some stuff. That it helped me soften my heart to find forgiveness for him, for his actions, to understand. And really what it did was it allowed me to embrace all the parts of me that were just like him.
Mm.
Because by denying his existence in my life and tuning him out, I, in a way, was cutting out all the parts of me that were just like him. And the thing is, like all of my creative, not all of it, but so much of my creative energy and my critical thinking and the way I think and process is exactly like him. And I wouldn't be able to embrace all of this of me if I wasn't able to embrace all of it through him. And I wish that I could, see him now and show him what I'm doing and talk with him. But I mean, I know he's with me, but to get to this place that just, it's like such a big, so much love in my heart for him, for what he went through, that it's just, there's no more anger
Mm.
and there's no more resentment. There's just there's sadness and there's grief. And then there's a part that I realized that was part of my soul's curriculum. Like that was the contract that I entered with when I came into this world, and God knew it. So, okay. So I accepted it. So yeah. So it was a challenging upbringing, but the ending is good. So it's all right.
Ah, that's so good to hear. And that's the thing about it. I think that a lot of us have had struggles with either our fathers or some aspect of our familial relationships. And when we cut them out entirely, we can't truly come to identify what makes us tick 100% and then recognize the goodness that also came from it, even though we only felt the bad. Like when I was reading your bio in the beginning and your reaction to that, and it's like, oh my gosh, who is that person? Right? It's like you have to be able to recognize all the different parts of you so that you can embrace that to really fulfill your true potential. And I think it's beautiful that you've been able to come that far with your healing and with your recognition and understanding the struggles that your father had. So many, especially, I mean, his upbringing, I cannot even imagine, right? Especially being white, female, I cannot imagine what your father went through growing up in that time period, in that location. So I am thankful to him for being part of who you are, because you are so strong. You are so strong. You have faced so many things, and you went through life with your mom most of the time, right? You guys were very close.
Yes. It's an interesting question. It's a yes and a no. If you asked my mom if we were close, she would say yes. If you asked me, I would always say yes, but really I felt no. And we were close in that I lived at home all through school. We went through a lot of challenges and ups and downs together, but we weren't close in that my way of feeling close, I was never able to fully express my emotions and how I felt and really what I was going through with my mom. So I always felt like there was some wall between us. And things that I wish I could have told her or talked to her about, she was a hard ass kind of mom. And I knew that about her and I understood that about her. And I didn't mind because I could see how much she gave and what being a hard ass is like. And I understood where it came from, but she never had the soft side with it to balance it out. And it was really hard for me. It was hard. It was hard because I couldn't talk with her the way I wished I could with how my other friends talk to their mom. So I felt like there was a lot of things I just had to ask my friends about, figure it out on my own. So I felt limited in my ability to just be myself. So I always felt like I was being the version that my mom wanted to be, which was a little bit like her, which was tough, hard on the outside, don't show any emotions, and those have a place, but that was all that I would show. And I was just like her in that way. And I can see so to my mom, we were close because I was just like her. But to me, I felt like there was such an emotional separation and distance that until she, when she got sick before she passed, we had moments where we were able to connect. And yet so much was not, there's a lot that wasn't said, a lot that was said, but in the end, it was still like before she passed, there was the circle was complete for us. But yeah, so I take that, my mom's side, which is total hard ass, and certain things about her personality. She's such a fighter that I am just like her in those ways, that I can embrace that as well too. So, oh yeah, I'm 50-50, my mom and dad. And
Oh,
all, and it's so interesting 'cause I always bring up I'm my mom and my dad. I am the good of my mom and the good of my dad. And I am the not so good of my mom and not so good of my dad. They're all in there. All of it is in there. It's all the ands are in there.
yes, absolutely. And then we have the opportunity to choose which part of the and we let out all the time, right? Which part
We
of
do. You know what? What's interesting is they're all in there and I don't even hide them anymore. I've done so much work that I'm not afraid of them anymore, which is kind of how, it all started. That's how I was able to write the book, was that there was something magical once I wrote my book, because I felt like I put all the dirty secrets and I put them on paper and I published it. There is nothing that anybody can come back around and try to extort me with and blackmail me with. It's like if somebody was to come up to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, like you're a doctor, but you flunked out of college." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I wrote about it. I published it in my book. Like, you're not telling me anything. There's nothing that you can hold against me." So, okay. And it's freeing though. It's very freeing. So I can talk about it. I share it, all of it, good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's all part of the same package. So it
when
all
it's all
works.
part of what's gotten you to where you are now. Every single bit
Absolutely.
of it. Yes.
Yep.
So I love that you brought up your book, by the way, because I actually have it right here
Oh.
for the listening audience, guys. You've got to go check out this book. It's Finding Courage to Let You Out, Living Our Humanness with Our Human Mess. It is such a great book, you guys, because as you read through this, yeah, just like Dr. Natasha has been saying here, is that she puts it all down in black and white, the things that she's gone through, and she's been through quite a bit. And I'm going to ask you here to share a couple of things that you can remember where you had that opportunity to make that choice, break down or break through. So be thinking on that. But
Mhm.
like I said, guys, finding courage to let you out, living our humanness with our human mess. So can you share with us a couple of those
Oh,
opportunities that, I mean, because you bore your soul
I
in this book,
did.
but
Yeah.
it connected to me so greatly because I saw myself in so much of it.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of sharing our story.
Yeah. And I wrote it, I didn't write to publish it. I actually wrote it for myself. And then I found that as I was journaling, I wasn't even going to write a book. It had no book in mind. It was just my inner deepest thoughts on my journal and on pages. And I would go back and go, "Oh, there's some cool stuff." I wouldn't want to read the journal, but I was like, "Oh, let me highlight sections because they're good to like, there's some good nuggets in there." And then I was like, "Oh, there's some good nuggets. These are things I'd want to share with my daughter. Oh, okay, let me type these up and put them in a binder for her." And I was like, "Oh, well, okay, well, I should make some sense out of these in the binder." And then I was like, "Well, if I'm going to do this, then, make it nice and I should make it pretty." And then I happened to come across somebody who's a writing coach, and she read part of it. She's like, "You have to write this book." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's when I hired a writing coach and really was like, "Okay, I guess it's a book." But then, of course, the book, I'm like, "Well, I'll just write the book for my daughters and I'm not going to publish it. I'm just going to write one and type up one book." Oh, which then turned into, okay, I'll publish it because I realized the stories resonate and there's so much healing for me, and friends that I shared ideas with wanted to know more. And so I said, yes, I would publish it. So it was a lot of support to get me there. Um, Man, I feel like the book has so many ups and downs with how many breakdowns and breakthroughs. Um, there were multiple different times. Um, I think one of the first hardest, really conscious decisions. And I felt like I was the one that was in charge of the decision. Was after I flunked out of college because I was an addict and actually an eating disorder, and I couldn't function in school. So by the end of my sophomore year, I, I mean, whatever. See, I wasn't even going to class at that point. So I flunked out, and I started working. I was working in restaurants and waiting tables, and for about a year. And I was working in about 3 or 4 different restaurants so that nobody knew that I was out of school, because I was working part-time everywhere. About a year into that, I remember just going, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like my mom worked so hard for me to go to a private high school, and I worked so hard to get into college, and the shame of everything that happened, somewhere I went, okay, like this is it. This is it. This is my life. And something in me was like, I don't want this to be it, but I don't know what else to do. And I remember just going, I cried because I remember just going, I don't know how to change it or what to do. I can't go back to school. I can't, all these can'ts and I shoulds and all of these things. And it was a moment where I woke up on a Monday morning. I didn't want to go to my first job, so I didn't. And I made some coffee, and we had a newspaper that got delivered by accident to us. And it was like a local paper with, like what movies and what bands and stuff like that, and local advertising. And as I was flipping through, there was probably 5 pages in, there was an advertising for, I get chills every time I think about this. There was an advertising for, Stanford was conducting an eating disorder trial. And it was a year long, and they were looking for, you could get free treatment if you were accepted into this program. And I called that day and I got accepted, and I was in their program by the end of the day. And this program was the first start of like, okay, there's going to be change. And I felt it. But it was with the program where somewhere within the few months in, the therapist was like, well, what about school? And I said, well, I can't go back to school. My dreams of a doctor are over. I flunked out. And she was like, well, maybe not. She's like, well, what about going to school, like going to the junior college and taking a class? And I went, I mean, yeah, I love studying science in the human body, but I don't think I'll ever be a doctor. So, but I'll go and, okay. And that first time I sat back in the anatomy class, it's like it all came back of how much I wanted to be a doctor. And I remember just going, oh my gosh. And so I called the chiropractic school to see what it would take, what I would have to do to get there. And so they laid it out, basically starting over, taking all the classes that I failed. And I remember saying, okay. And I did it. And so there was a moment that was such a big moment of either I choose to say yes to the hard work and do all these classes over, and doing them being older than everybody at the time, and just going, but it's okay. It's what I wanted so badly that I was willing to do it all over and start over. So I did it and graduated. And part of it's, if I didn't graduate when I did, I probably would not have met Dondi. So because I needed to graduate at that time to be in the clinic that I was in and to meet him. So that's how that whole cycle and circle, it brings chills and emotion, not because of any, I don't feel any of like guilt or shame or anything like that. It's just the bigness and the awe of AWE of how God works.
Yes.
And how it happened, and all the parts that came that just were there. It took me doing the work, but it was just there for me. So it makes me so emotional all the time.
Me too. I'm like sitting here, I've got tears in my eyes, because it's like you said, you accidentally had a paper delivered, right? That It wasn't even supposed to be yours, but I truly believe in God's suddenlies, his
Yes.
suddenlies, because you would not be here on this podcast right now without that suddenly. Because
Right.
you mentioned Don D, but many of the people listening don't know who he is. And Don D is my husband. And Dr. Natasha and my husband went to chiropractic school together, and that's where they met. And so I would not know this beautiful woman
Mhm.
without that accidental
Right.
paper delivery. Not to mention that it's like that was your moment in time to say yes to you, that you were worthy of going into that treatment program and getting the help that you needed, to be able to move you from where you were at in that stuck place to where you are now,
Yes.
serving so many people.
Oh man, yes. It's such a big, it was, I I knew it was a big moment at the time. I didn't know how big, and I didn't understand the magnitude of what happened on that fateful Monday, that I was just, I just felt it. Like I didn't want to go to work that morning. And I couldn't explain why, other than I just was tired and I didn't want to. And there was something defiant. And I remember that feeling so strongly that now, um, I can articulate it as that, like the life force in me, the defiance of, no, I am not going to stay in this life the way it is. I deserve more. I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but that feeling was very strong, that it's palpable and I will never forget it. So, and I'm
Oh,
glad I didn't, because it has served me many times.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now in this gratitude space, because I'm feeling it in my heart, and I know that you are too, just feeling the gratitude for that moment in time. If you had the opportunity to go back and just have a quick conversation with yourself, whether it was a year before that happened, or even 5 years, or even when you were a young child, when you were struggling in that physically abusive situation that you were in, what would you say to yourself?
Mm,
Being where you are now, the way your heart feels, what would you say to yourself back then?
yeah. Love this question. And because I've thought about this. I think about it. My daughter's not in any kind of that kind of situation, but she looks just like me. So when I see
Does.
her, I think about myself as, as she was going through those same years. Um, I think for me, it's to have been able to tell myself and say, you know what, it's going to feel like it's going to be really hard and it's going to hurt and you're not going to understand what you're going through and you're not going to understand why you're going through. And it's going to take a long time, but there'll be a moment and you'll understand it when you get there. It's going to make sense. And once it makes sense, it'll be so powerful that you would not ever want to change everything that you're going through. And knowing, that would be the only thing, that little girl to just know that it all matters and there's a purpose for it. And that's all she needs to know.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. Because I'll ask this question pretty frequently when I'm doing interviews. And, sometimes we get like a pinpoint answer, but knowing, having that understanding that everything that you went through and helping to reinforce that with your younger self, that everything you're going through is going to create you into such a magnificent being, that you're going to be able to impact thousands of people around the world, to be able to step into their greatness and to truly live the life that they were put here to live. It's worth it, little girl. It's worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And to this day, that's like, wow, to get to this side of it and go, wow, it makes sense. I get it. And I remember the first time I thought to myself, somebody asked the question if I ever wanted to go back and change anything. And for so long in my life, I said, oh, I wish I could change this or wish I could change that. I remember the moment where I was like, no, I wouldn't want to change any of it. Now, just that place of, wow, I wouldn't want to change it because I understood what all the pieces were for. and understand it to the best of my ability now that it's not even complete, but I understand enough to say, wouldn't even want to change any of it. And then that was a big moment for me. And that's kind of what helped ground me in who I am and what I'm doing and what the energy that I carry with my work and my purpose is, because I understood that feeling. And that's what I do when I'm working with people, is to help them get to that same place, to just recognize, and to the place where you just go, oh, there's purpose for it. There's meaning behind it. Even if I don't understand it and can't see it, it'll reveal itself eventually and make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, such great answer. Thank you for that. So you do have a beautiful daughter, and she is your little mini me, and she's finally accepting that and not hating it. Because you know how
Right.
mother-daughter yeah,
Totally.
seriously.
Yeah.
So I know that you, from what you just said about what you went through when you were a child, with your relationship with your mom and with your dad, and how everything may not have been how you would have liked it to have been back then, but now you can look back and be grateful for it. So I know that your relationship with your daughter is not the same as the relationship you had with your mom. How are you teaching her the same things that you learned really on your own in uncomfortable circumstances, but in a way that she has that emotional connection, that she has that safe place with you? It's like, how are you parenting her differently
Yeah.
based off of how you were parented?
Yeah. I really made a conscious choice to do what I felt like I wished my mom could have done. And that's in no way to put to, and like I think about my mom now and go, you know, if she knew how to do this, she would have done it. And the only reason I knew is because I went to school and found the tools to understand it. So I don't, there's no blame for with on my mom or anything at this point. Um, but I really am so much more present to recognize that even though my daughter looks just like me, she's her own person with her own set of thoughts and her own set of feelings. And I treat her the way that I would anybody, which is I'm not going to assume I know what she feels or assume I know what she's thinking. And I will ask her. And I remember she was about whatever, it must have been like 4, I guess, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that age range, where prior to that, when she's a baby, I'm trying to figure out what she needs. Like, is she hungry? Is she tired? I don't know. What does she need? Somewhere around age 4 or 5. And I was able to ask her. She was really upset. And I could just ask her. I was like, Jasmine, what is it that you need from me? What's going on? She's like, I just need you to hug me. And I was like, great. If you tell me what you need, then I can provide it. And life was so much easier. And then I realized it was a little bit of a light bulb moment. I went, oh, well, if she's clear on telling me what she needs, I can be a great mom. And it took that to heart with, I let her speak, I let her share, I ask her questions, and I really make sure that she knows there's no judgment on anything that she says. No matter what she says, I'm not judging her. No matter what she's thinking, I'm not judging her. And no matter what she does, I'm not judging her. I will correct her behavior just the same way that I corrected her grammar when she was 5. But there's no judgment on it. It's just correcting it. And I still to this day, probably at least a couple times a week, I make sure to tell her, I'm not mad at you and I'm not judging you. I'm just correcting this, or I want to help you with this. And she goes, oh, yeah, I know, Mom. I know. I'm like, okay. So I can see how in her mind has able to differentiate who she is different from what she does. And so if I'm correcting what she does, in no way does she take it to mean that she is anyway broken or less than, or there's no judgments. So she's not feeling like I'm criticizing who she is as a person. And it shows in times where I get surprised sometimes. She'll talk to people and she talks like an adult and she'll talk with honesty and clarity. And I listen, I go, dang, that's good. Good job, child. And I realized that there's a confidence that comes for her to realize who she is matters and how she feels matters. But I teach her how to take those feelings so that she's not acting out those feelings. She's not behaving. I mean, she's a kid and like she's human, so she does, but so she's not just trying to act out when she's feeling bad to try to get attention from me or anybody else. So she's learning to discern those things, which is what I wish that I had when I grew up. And I'm sure that there are things that I'm not teaching her because I'm not thinking about it, or there's things, but this is the one area that I feel like, you know what? It's the one thing I wish I had differently. And that I'm teaching her is her feelings matter, but they are not, I don't want them to be the driving force of of the actions that she takes. And that's what I realized for myself too, is, the emotional, I guess it's part of the literacy, emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Part of it is just, put your big girl panties on, grow up and feel the feelings, but don't act them out. And that kind of place.
Oh,
So,
that is so good. Oh my gosh. I wish that I had been taught emotional intelligence at her age, or even before the age she is now, like you did. I mean, because I truly believe that in this day and age that the majority of people let their lives be run by their feelings. And that's part of the reason why we're in so much disrupt. That's why we have so many crazy things going on, right? So emotional intelligence. So being who you are and what you do now, what would you say to the people listening to this? What is just one tip that you could give them that they could start with in maybe gaining a little bit of emotional intelligence?
The first thing I think is understanding that your feelings are real, but they are not who you are. Your feelings are meant to be felt. They're meant to be learned from. They're meant to be understood. They're not meant to be acted out. So it's recognizing the actions and behaviors and decisions that you make. Are you making them from an emotional place or for a place that's grounded? And if you can answer that, it'll always guide you back to, oh, I'm emotional. Okay, whoop, little self-check there. And are you grounded? Okay, then this is the right action and decision to make. Okay, then you move forward. But it takes slowing down and and really feeling it, thinking it, and just allow that to just go, okay, am I emotional? Then I should just not act in this moment.
That is, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And I love how you take your life lessons and the book lessons from your education and combine it together, and how you're applying this to what you're doing to help people now. Can you share with us more about what you are doing now? What is your purpose? Are you still treating patients as a chiropractor? And where are you going from here?
Okay, so I no longer have a chiropractic practice. I do still adjust, some friends and things that they're like, I'm never gonna find somebody else like you. And I'm like, okay.
Dondi hears that. Yeah, Dondi hears that all the time too. Yes.
So I still have some that I adjust that I've had for years for wellness. But right now I do all one-on-one coaching, and actually I'll be launching a group coaching, facilitating group coaching calls and practices. So right now, I mean, you caught me literally on right before things are going to be coming out.
It's so good.
It's so perfect. So, if you find me on Facebook right now, you can just see the posts and stuff that I have, and things will be launching over the next, few weeks to a month here, of classes that you can take, podcasts you can listen to, courses that you can sign up for, just all the things about emotional literacy, but really about teaching people how to take all the broken pieces of their life and make something beautiful. And living, I've finally just owned it with my zebra and the whole live life untamed and be untamed, be like the zebra, take all of the power of life and live untamed. I feel like right now there's such a push for all of us to know, like, we're not required to compromise what our hearts desire. We don't have to live according to other people's demands or their expectations or their obligations, and to be free in our heart, and whatever our heart is calling us to do, to be authentic and create it and express it, and the freedom that comes with it. So all of those things are going to be launching. So if you follow me on, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me, which is Natasha_Life Doctor. You can find me on Facebook at Natasha Nelson, and my name is spelled with a C, Natacha. So find me there, and then all the things as I start to make the announcements will come out. But that's just the preview.
Yay! And what is your website?
www.adancingzebra.com. So it's adancingzebra.com.
Love it.
It's a little zebra with hearts all over it. It's me.
It's adorable. It's adorable. I was just up on there earlier today and I just absolutely love it. So I will make sure that all of that gets into the show notes as well. So guys, make sure that you go and you get connected, you follow, and you participate, because whether you want to admit it or not, if you're not where you want to be in life, there is something that you need to work on. And more than likely, it comes down to your mind. And
It
so
does.
yes,
It
it's those
does.
things that we tell ourselves, that ceiling that we self-impose, right? We put it there on ourselves. So this is your final opportunity, Dr. Natasha. What is the final thought that you would love to leave with the audience today?
Oh, just one?
I know,
Marcy.
right? Well, they will have to connect with you to get more, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I think the most important final thought is I think it's for all of us, because this is the most important thing I learned from myself, not to feel ashamed or embarrassed or guilty or any judgment feelings about the life experiences we've had. And I know for myself, just taking it all and embracing it to be who you are, embracing it to show up and let people see that, because that's the beauty. Every person, when you get to connect to somebody's heart, oh, it's the most beautiful, life moving experience ever. So do the work and be willing to open your heart and let others in. And it's I can't even express the words beyond that. So do the work.
Absolutely. I'm taking that. That's a directive to me too. So let's all do the work, guys. Well, thank you so much, my sweet friend, for being my guest today on the Your Blank What Now podcast, with your title being You're a Zebra. What Now? Dr. Natasha Nelson, thank you so much. You are such a gift.
Oh, Marcy, this has been such a pleasure and an honor. So thank you for allowing me to share and be with you and allow our hearts to connect today. Thank you. And to everybody listening, thank you for listening and being with me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.